All right, okay, we're recording. So this is the Plan Stage Group weekly meeting, which has started without a hitch for anybody watching the recording. Everything went fine. Donald and I had a question for you, Valmir. So we have this new process where MRs that touch spec/features should be reviewed by a corresponding test automation engineer. And I think the way it will work in Danger is to pick the test automation engineer for the stage. Is that right? So it won't pick like a random test automation engineer. It will always pick you if it's a plan change. Is that right?
I'm not sure about the Danger, how exactly it's configured, but I imagine so.
Cool. And from your perspective, that's okay? Like for you to just review all of them?
Yeah, it's just fine.
Okay.
If after starting doing that, I see that I'll be overloaded, then we can iterate on that. But so far, it's just fine.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, just to be clear as well, I think this will be in the documentation update when it happens, but this is like a documentation review where it is a review that we need for a merge request, but it's not a review that blocks a merge request. So if Valmir can't get to a review before before every other review happens and we're ready to merge it and we think it's good, we can still merge it and ask him to review it at a later date, like, you know, especially if he's on vacation or whatever. So, and the same with the documentation reviews, right? Like you can create a follow-up issue for the documentation team and then they can fix the documentation or add their comments in a separate MR because we can always change stuff. So hopefully this should be a pretty low overhead process. And then we get a lot more input from the quality team at an earlier stage on our MRs, because I think in general, what we want is more input. We want people to be able to give their input as early as possible without necessarily blocking things on receiving that input from them. And we've had similar questions about UX reviews in the past, but those are blocking, I think, Annabelle? Like if you don't UX approve a merge request, we can't merge it, right?
Theoretically, that's how it should be, but that's usually not followed.
Okay, well, there you go. I mean, we probably merge requests that should have had a back-end review, but only had a front-end review or vice versa a bunch of times anyway. So, like, you know, I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. Doesn't look like Eric's here yet, so I just wanted to mention this again just because I keep thinking about it, but we don't need to actually do anything with it now. So we were talking before about having epics that work at the instance level. And the way I think about that is that we want things that work across different top level groups. So not necessarily the instance level, because on GitLab.com, the instance level means like, you know, everything, right? Like, you know, millions of projects, hundreds of thousands of public projects. It's not going to be usable. So the way I'm trying to think about it is this collection of top level groups, which I think John has mentioned before, kind of maps to a portfolio in, you know, we have portfolio management, program management and project management. I think I've got that right. And portfolio being like this collection of stuff. So we can already do portfolio management if you put all your stuff in one top level group and you use subgroups. What we can't do is if you use different top level groups, which there are valid reasons for. Legacy reasons is one of them. Like we have different top level groups because we have we created them before we had subgroups, but also permissions because groups inherit permissions as well as labels and epics. So my ideal here is to create something that's like a group, but doesn't inherit permissions, but just inherits these like planning features. So it will inherit like labels, milestones, epics, and you know, boards will see down, but it won't inherit permissions or other group level stuff. I think technically that is the simplest way to do it, which is probably why I'm thinking of it in that way. Like from an API perspective, we can basically consider like group labels to be also portfolio labels if we add these. But I'm definitely very interested to hear what people think on the issue, because I think that's, if we could implement this, it would solve a bunch of our own internal problems. One of them being like, I as a manager want to know what we did in plan. I can look at the GitLab org group, but we might have done some stuff on the website. Like, you know, Yaka's written a bunch of blog posts lately. Brett's written a couple of blog posts. Jan wrote a blog post. Those won't show up because they're in a different top level group. So having all those be able to have the the shared hierarchy would be really nice, even without moving the projects. That's all I had to say on that. So that was a bit of a monologue, really. But if anybody does have anything they want to say, I'll give you a couple of seconds before I'll let Donald start with the next thing.
Sean, would that mean that in this model, that new top level group would inherit the labels from below rather than establishing a layer where labels are established at the top of the hierarchy? This top level group would basically absorb whatever labels were underneath it from a reporting perspective.
So the hierarchy at the moment, just to clarify, I know you already know this, I'm just clarifying. So top level group, subgroup, subgroup, project, say. So labels from here can be used in these three, labels from here can be used in these ones, labels from etc. What I'm proposing is that above the top level group, we add an optional one layer of portfolio. So a group can only be in one portfolio, and a portfolio can have multiple groups. A group can be in at most one portfolio, so it might not be in any, it might be in one portfolio, and that portfolio can have labels which inherit to everything that we just talked about. So top level group, subgroup, subgroup, projects, etc. So if at GitLab we were using this, we would move all our team labels to the portfolio instead, and we'd probably want features to make that easier to like shift a label up a level, because you can already promote from a project to a group label, but you can't promote from a group label to a higher group label. But that's what I'm thinking there. And then you can have an epic on the portfolio that contains epics from different top level groups, but only top level groups that are part of the portfolio.
Yeah, well, the nice thing about that then is that from a licensing perspective, we go down a path of licensing at that level. Well, no, it doesn't. I take that back. We wouldn't want to change.
I was trying to think how tiers would work, and I think basically all the groups in the portfolio would have to have the same license, which would probably be ultimate, I guess. But the portfolio itself wouldn't need a license because it's just a thing that contains those groups.
Don't make that assumption.
Okay.
There is an open issue, and it came up in the customer advisory board, and it's an open discussion I've been having with leadership, and I'll link the issue here as soon as I get done. But there was interest in possibly exploring a licensing model where you could license by a group for Ultimate. So imagine a organization that's using Premium, but a team is really suitable and they want Ultimate features, and so license it by the group. That's at least being discussed. That's about the best. Leave it at. So I'll link you here shortly.
Yeah, I think basically when I've been thinking about this, I haven't really thought too much about licensing, as you can tell from my answer there.
Yeah, I would think that we would want to leave licensing at the group. We'd want to be able to license. We'd want to be able to if we end up going there.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And then, I guess the feedback I'm mainly looking for from people in general on this, and again, this can be on the issue, if not in the call, is just like, is this too confusing instead of just creating a new concept of like another type of label and another type of epic that lives above groups? So like my approach here is basically say, instead of create something that's not an epic or a board, but lives like in a different place. No, wait, let me rephrase that. I'm saying that we create a new container that can contain these top level groups, and that could solve our problems. The other way of solving it would be to say, well, we can have a new type of label. So we can have a project label, we can have a group label, or we can have like this instance level type label. We can have a project board, a group board, or this instance level type board. We can have an epic or this instance level epic. So I'm trying to avoid that sort of proliferation of types, but it might not be the right approach because it might be confusing and it might be hard to implement, but that's my thinking there. Donald, did you want to start with the next point and then I can follow on from you?
Yep. Okay, so yeah, let's talk about 12.0, how 12.0 is going. Of course, we had the disruption from Contribute. Now we're a week away from it, so hopefully everyone's jet lag is gone. I know mine was the toughest, same time zone and all. But on the front end, I think we are going all right. We're on track. We accounted for less capacity than we would have because of contribute, and I think we are on track for most everything in there. There were a few things from 11.11 that moved into 12.0, and because of that, I think there were a couple issues that weren't really that high of a priority that we moved into 12.1. So all that being said, I think we're good. There's the big one on the front end is the backlog ordering, manual ordering of the backlog list or of lists. That hasn't been started on the front end. Rajat is starting it when he gets back tomorrow, but I'm pretty confident that he can get that done in 12.0.
Cool.
Of course, I'll update if it changes, but.
Awesome. I saw Brett, I think you already created an MR for the back end stuff, right? Like just like the first stuff we need, is that right?
Yeah, some of the core pieces that are needed are in there. So
cool. So when Rajat gets back tomorrow, he's got something he can. He's not starting from scratch, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And I think Annabelle, you'd already started reviewing it as well, so that's great that we've been able to move.
Yeah, it's been reviewed partially, and then there's another MR that has all the CSS in it, so we won't have to write any of that, hopefully.
Oh, nice. Wow. It sounds like Rajat's coming into a pretty good situation.
Yeah. So I'm even more confident that he's that we're good to go on that on the front end side.
Cool. Yeah, from a back end perspective, I've just been looking at it as like what proportion of the work that we did in 11.11 did we commit to? Because obviously we committed to a lot less, and a little under half of the weight that we had in 11.11 is left open in 12.0, which is about right because we're about halfway through the development month. And obviously there's in progress stuff that means that that's not necessarily accurate. For instance, Brett's got a couple of things on his plate that are probably going to take a little while longer. But hopefully we're not too far off there. So Eric, if you're watching this later, we don't have any major concerns about the overall volume of work in 12.0. And yeah, I think we're good. It doesn't look like we have anything else on the agenda. So thanks very much, everybody. I'll upload this to YouTube once I've got the recording, and have a great day.